If I have to start looking online to see if there's a way to cheese the boss battle, that lets me know that this is not good game design for me. And then
this is you with the Baldur's Gate. Or Dark Alliance, sorry.
Dark Alliance, yeah. Well, Dark Alliance was just a hot mess for a lot of reasons. I think people kind of assume when they're getting into a D&D or any other RPG that they're going to be the heroes of the story and that there's going to be a big villain that they're going to have to fight. I think that the antithesis of that kind of throws a monkey wrench is when the party actually starts doing things.
Or social engineering, sorry. Any type of social engineering is kind of just manipulation in a way, so...
That's right. We have the new term. I remember this from my training when I worked in retail. It's social engineers, guys. It's not grifters anymore.
Yeah. We also call them influencers.
Oh, social influencers. Yeah. What kind of monster makes the best frap?
Oh, the frap monster.
Welcome to Total Pebble Knockdown, everybody. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Alex.
And we're just here enjoying our frap monster fraps. It's the newest offering at Starbucks, but we have some other things we're going to talk about on the show instead. We got a question from our Discord community from Datum recently about boss battles, and about our favorite boss battles, in fact. And I've been thinking about it. Have you been thinking a little bit about it?
A little bit. There's a lot of games to go through with a lot of boss battles, though.
Sure is. And, I have a couple things that I might want to talk about, but while we mull that over a little bit, we thought that we would get onto a soapbox, because I want to say something that I've been meaning to say on this program for a really long time.
Oh.
I actually don't like boss battles. I don't think that they're usually implemented very well, and I don't think they accomplish what they're trying to accomplish most of the time.
What do you think they're trying to accomplish?
Okay, what a boss battle should accomplish, at least in my estimation, is to be the culmination of taking what you have learned in the game so far and applying it to one larger creature. So, like, if I've learned how to do dodges and parries, or I have this new skill that I've just acquired, having a boss battle that lets me utilize that skill in a new and interesting way to show that I've really mastered it, that I've really understood what that is, in something that feels way more epic. What boss battles, unfortunately, usually turn into is, here's a big dude with a lot of health. Kill it. Why? It's in the way. If you don't kill the boss, you can't keep going with the game. The game is over for you if you can't deal with the giant creature with the giant hammer. No more game for you. And I just feel like what it ends up being, and maybe it's just because of the long period of time that I've had to deal with Souls-likes, we're just going to kind of like roadblock off the game until you get through this really big, really frustrating thing that we're going to put in your path to keep you from actually doing anything past that. And they feel out of place. Like, if you're going through the game in the opening stages, and, you take a little boop with the little minions that are out there, and you boop another minion, and boop another minion, and you're kind of going along, and things are moving at a good clip, good pace and everything. Then you hit this one giant wall, and it's a boss. And the boss just stops you from doing that progression. That is where I think way too many games get off rail, and they start to lose me. You'll end up with just a singular boss that ends up becoming so frustratingly difficult I don't want to play the game anymore. Even if I beat the boss after several tries, I'm still like, is this going to be what I have to contend with every single time? So I think that it's not necessarily even that I don't like boss battles. I don't really like the way that they've been implemented in games where they feel so out of place. There's just this one giant, horrible monster that you will not encounter anywhere else in the game. That it sometimes feels completely out of place in the game, but it's a big monster for you to fight, so there's something.
So what I'm hearing is you don't like battles of attrition.
Yes, I don't
So
like battles of attrition.
It's not so much that you don't like a skill check, which is a boss that would be there to make sure you've learned like what to do so far, like how to play the game to a certain point. I feel like you don't like bosses that are there as just here's a ton of HP and spend the next 20 minutes fighting me.
Exactly, and I feel like there's too many games out there that I have had to play. Well, I guess I didn't have to play any of them, but that I have played, where they get into this pattern of saying, yep, you were going to put up a giant shielded boss with a lot of health and a lot of these skills, and we're just going to plop it down to pretty much just put a roadblock in your way so that the game is longer artificially, because now I have to just go through this boss several times, and it will never come up again. Like, the boss will never come up again.
So I think for me the difference comes down to when I'm playing a game of the boss battle, it's not so much a big problem. Souls-likes I don't really care for, but again, those are skill. You have to use your skills to get over those, and that's one thing. But they are giant HP sponges.
Oh yeah.
In games like MMOs, however, and anything that takes from that genre, like even your Diablos, for instance, your ARPGs, where you've got a boss you can encounter more than once typically. They have, attacks and sequences they go through. Did you play Reaper of Souls for Diablo 3?
Yes.
Yes. The Mathael fight?
Okay.
That one is a really hard boss fight. Because he's kind of a dickhole.
Yep.
Like, second phase, he summons that thing, and it's right there when you get there, and it can kill you almost instantly, so you've got to learn from your mistakes of dying 15 times.
Yeah.
And it's no longer just, like, attrition, it's, alright, you have to use your skills and avoid the obstacles and whatnot. And all the hazards, for instance. So games like WoW, where you could straight up, tank a boss, face tank it, just stand there and take everything. But that's not really the most beneficial way to approach a fight. Like, it's helpful if you know, like, some of the mechanics maybe, like, if you know the abilities you're using, where you should stand, where you shouldn't stand. So I view boss fights in that capacity to be different than, say, your Elder Scrolls, which they're similar, they're still boss fights, and they definitely, like Elder Scrolls, they'll telegraph their attacks for you too. So you learn the attack pattern, you get out of their way, but...
Right.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, there's a couple things that revolve around boss battles that let me know if it's not going to be good. The first thing is if I have to start looking online to see if there's a way to cheese the boss battle, that lets me know that this is not good game design for me. And then...
This is you with the Baldur's Gate. Or Dark Alliance, sorry.
Dark Alliance, yeah. Well, Dark Alliance was just a hot mess for a lot of reasons. And then the other problem is usually where it becomes apparent that you have to grind out more skill levels or abilities before you can actually take on the boss. Like they are basically an equipment check, where the reason why you can't defeat the boss is not because of your skill, or not because you haven't been given the resources necessary or the training, but because you were supposed to grind out 6 more levels, and you were supposed to get, like, at least an epic level of armor by now, and since you don't have those things, you can't pass this, so go back to the drawing board, pleb, and deal with another, 10 hours of just doing monotonous, mindless activities so that you can come back and get through this thing,
And that becomes an issue of scaling, where, say, again, going back to your example of, like, WoW, you're not going to use a level 1 character and go defeat a, level 35 boss in a dungeon by yourself, Like, even at the same level as the boss, you're probably not going to beat them by yourself. You'd have to have a lot of skill to do that, which, some people will occasionally do. There have been people who take 8 hours and will clear current level, like, their level bosses on dungeons and stuff by themselves. They'll take the 8 hours to do it just to say they've done it. but they'll do it. And so it's a skill thing for them. And that's
Sure.
Go for it. If that's what you like, do that.
That's great.
But the skill check is, you're not gonna like use a level 1 character to go defeat a level 70 boss. That's appropriate, I feel. I don't think you should in a game that is the system of, I don't think you should be able to do it. I know people do Dark Souls level 1 runs, for instance, which is different. That's kind of like doing Breath of the Wild without upgrading your hearts or stamina. It's achievable with skill, but that means you're just severely handicapping yourself.
It's funny that you mentioned like MMOs and that. Or, where you have to do raid bosses and that kind of thing, because it does feel like this issue crops up a lot in ones that rely heavily on co-op experiences. You'll see this in like Borderlands, where they'll get into a few of these bosses that I still hate to this day from that series, mostly because they assume you are going to be playing with multiple people in order to deal with the boss in the first place.
Right.
Because there's that whole thing that a lot of games do, where your progress on the boss isn't saved if you die. You get resurrected, and the boss comes back with full health, so we gotta start back from scratch.
In something like World of Warcraft, as the other side of this example thing, there are quests you'll get that are dungeon quests, obviously. Dungeons are meant to be done with a group of people.
Sure.
But there are also, like, world quests you can do that are suggested like 3 players, suggested 5 players, for instance. And those ones, you don't have to necessarily use a group.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been playing WoW a bit, again, because Dragonflight came out. And so, like, on the character I have right now, I can take a quest that says suggested 3 players, and I'm like, I don't need anyone else to do this with me generally.
Yeah.
I'll look at the HP and I go, 400,000? I've got 100,000 hit points. I'm like, I can take this. Through skill, you can do it. You know? And I'm not even playing a healer class. It's just like, I can do this. This is fine. Just manage all my resources and my stuns and all that stuff, and I can handle this by myself. So essentially, you're taking a mini boss and just tackling yourself in that case.
Right. The example of boss battles that I did like, they might not really appear on like favorite boss battles when I talk about that, but in the case of something like a Legend of Zelda, what they would do, typically, is they would introduce a new ability. You get the grapple hook, or you get the little spinny disc, or the bow, or whatever. In the level, you would utilize that in a few different ways.
Yes.
And then when you would get to the boss, you would need that specific skill in order to defeat the boss.
Yeah. I know you probably haven't played Breath of the Wild.
I have not played Breath of the Wild.
But in that one, you're going into the dungeons or whatever to get the abilities that you get, like unlock the new powers that you get.
Right.
And you get the ability at the beginning of the dungeon. The dungeon teaches you how to use it, and then at the end of the dungeon, you have to solve a puzzle, kind of deal. Like, you're solving a puzzle through it to figure out like what you can do with this ability in different ways. There's no boss at the end of those dungeons. It's just hey, this is how you use this ability that we're giving you now.
Certainly, yeah.
Which is different, but it's nice.
When they introduce those just giant damage sponges, I think that there's too much of a reliance on saying, here's a big cool monster, that we designed. It doesn't necessarily matter if it makes sense right now in terms of the game. Doesn't even matter. We're going to throw a couple zeros behind its health points. We're just going to give it a giant pool of health. We're going to give it some real bullshit attacks. And we're going to call it good. And I'm telling you right now, I don't want to play that game. I'm not going to enjoy it. I don't consider it good game design when I see it. I want something that actually matters to the game, that makes sense in the game, but then also utilizes, what my character can do so that it feels like there was a reason why I'm at this stage and why this boss is here now. Far too often, boss battles are just an excuse to say, well, here's the next roadblock in your way before you can keep going with the game.
Yeah. I don't mind when they're narrative boss battles and they don't really they're not like huge gigantic fights, but they're kind of set pieces. Those are fun. Narrative boss battles are great.
If it's the kind of thing where I have to like chip away at little tiny titty bitty pieces of health constantly, it's not particularly fun. If you're going to do one where it's really hard I think I'd prefer like the multi-phasic boss battles where it's like, oh, okay, they're getting into an attack pattern, and then you come up and you smash them for like a quarter of their health, and then we've got to do this little thingamajiggy again so that I can smash them for another quarter of the health instead. Because then I can actually see that there's progress being made and not just like see how many bullets that I can throw into them. I'm playing through a game at some point I'll talk about on here right now, where I have heard the boss battles are more of the former rather than the latter, and so if that happens, I'm going to definitely rant about that on air, because I will not be a happy camper. Although I can totally see where it's going to be. I'll save the mystery for another episode of what I'm playing. So I will tell you probably in the next episode about some of the boss battles that I did enjoy, but they are kind of atypical of boss battles, I'll probably be able to explain. And it's for that one reason, getting into arena, just like saying, well, here's the walled off arena, here's a big dude that you gotta fight, figure it out, and there's no progression forward before you do it. It seems so limiting in its scope that I don't
can talk about both
play.
boss battles you enjoy and some that you don't enjoy, because I can think of a couple that were terrible.
Yeah, I think I talked about one of them on the show last time, come to think of it. But, but there's more. I'm sure there's more. Don't worry. Anyway, that was my soapbox. So I guess I would just ask everybody, why am I right? Perfect.
This segment is just sort of why boss battles suck.
Yeah, exactly. And why am I right to not like them? Save your favorite or least favorite boss battles for another time, because we will be coming back to talk about that in a later episode. So, Alex, I got a topic for a delving deeper that I wanted to discuss with you.
Let's delve into it.
Yeah, we're delving. So,
who's Delvin?
He's the evil wizard.
No, he's actually part of the Thieves Guild in Riften.
Oh, that's right. Right. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going deeper than the Thieves Guild was in Riften. We're going way down. I wanted to talk to you about a phenomenon that I've seen a handful of times in games, and most recently I saw it in Plague Tale Requiem. I'll set the scene for you, because Amicia and her brother Hugo have arrived in one of these thriving towns. They're on the run from a fanatical group because it's Plague Tale. And for those who aren't really familiar with the story, there's this whole rat plague that's going on in Plague Tale. And
I assume that's what the name of the game is from?
Yes.
Their tails are plagued.
Yes, because it's a tale about a plague. Anyway,
well, rats have tails.
Oh yeah, it's not spelled that way, but sure. Anyway, yeah, too bad. Anyway, so the rats are a plague, and they have tails. And
See? Told you.
Yes. Hugo, he has some like magical abilities that kind of allows him to manipulate this whole scenario. He might be the key to actually stopping the plague. And after the first game, you kind of figure that maybe the rat plague is over, but he's still in danger for different series.
Same plot, though.
Similar plot.
It sounds about the same.
Yeah, the endings are very different.
Sure, I just mean, isn't Ellie, they want to take her brain apart so they can use her to make a serum or a vaccine? It sounds very similar to this one person can maybe stop this, plague.
Spoilers for anyone who might be watching the television show right now and are not familiar with the game.
Right, they made a show out of it. Unfortunate.
I can't wait till people who have watched that show but haven't seen the game see the last episode of the season, because I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen. Anyway, get ready for that. Get ready for your red wedding moment, everybody watching the show. But at any rate, in the sequel, Plague Tale Requiem, Amicia's on the run. They get to this nice town, and all of a sudden, shortly after they arrive, the rats show up.
Yeah.
En masse, and start killing everybody. And the plague starts coming all over the place. And Amicia makes the very interesting conclusion, that, oh, I think we brought it here. It's following Hugo. And it got me to thinking about the Oops, I Did an Apocalypse storyline of games, which I have encountered in a couple other games, as Shadow of the Tomb Raider, for instance. Lara Croft accidentally causes a flood at the beginning of the game that completely wipes out a city in South America. Assassin's Creed Rogue, the assassin in that game steals an artifact for the Brotherhood and ends up destroying a city in the process, and then has to figure out what to do after that. And I think that that's kind of the interesting part of this. What happens afterward inevitably becomes the protagonist trying to figure out how to deal with the problem that they created through the rest of the game and rectify it. Yeah. So that seems to have come up enough times that I wanted to discuss it, and my thoughts that I wanted to throw toward you is this the kind of thing that we might be able to utilize in like a role-playing game? Like where the party ends up accidentally creating the apocalyptic scenario that they themselves now have to fix.
Sure. I mean, I've done something similar in past D&D games where I had some time travel shenanigans. I had one group I was playing with. We're going to be doing a thing that would impact something that happened later. Okay. So essentially they were going to be capturing elementals Pokemon or Ghostbusters style.
Cool.
To give to scientists who would invariably do some experiments that caused the elemental planes to collapse. Mm-hmm. So them capturing the elementals given to this guy would then cause this guy to be able to do the thing that caused all of reality to kind of get fucked. Mm-hmm. Which I later used in a setting where the elemental, in the same game's world, where the elemental planes were collapsing. Sure. And so I had that party from a different game who had to go back in time to stop this guy from making it collapse. But it was all set up as a throughput of this one world story told between different parties in different eras.
You used it as a story device, essentially.
Yes.
I kept thinking about the idea of the party having to rectify that maybe they are the big bad at the end of all of this.
That's a fun one, too.
Yeah.
What if we're not the good guys?
I mean, parties do have a tendency to set a lot of things on fire.
Yeah, I think it's fun when you use the morally gray aspect of,
sure.
You know, you think you're the good guy all along, but it turns out, maybe not so great. This is like Spec Ops: The Line.
Yep.
Yeah. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
I know you got it for me. Thank you. I have not played it yet.
You haven't played it yet? Okay. Well, you'll know exactly how that works. Because, yeah, actually, coming to think of it, Spec Ops: The Line does ask that question pretty much throughout its entire runtime. About are we actually the good guys here? And makes you continually question it. I think, especially when you have an open world where your characters have the freedom to do things, they're probably going to make some pretty bad decisions. And it's probably a good idea to actually play off of that. You might not even need a villain in your game.
Sure, if you want to look at, like, God of War.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the original ones and then the newer ones, maybe. I haven't played the newer ones, but, like, throughout the entire thing, what are you doing? Killing gods. Are you really the good guy here, or are you just self-serving? Well, Kratos is 100% self-serving.
Oh, yeah. He's not doing it to save anybody.
Yeah.
He was never doing it for that. He's doing it because he's angry at the gods.
Yeah.
He's angry at the gods for killing his wife.
So, and then he's angry at the gods for not, taking the memories away from him.
Yeah, I mean, the gods screwed with him, granted, but...
So he murdered them all, he does.
Did we really need to murder all the gods and throw the world into chaos? I don't know.
And then the Titans.
And then the Titans, and then go to other pantheons and kill everybody in the pantheons in those.
I will say, I did watch recently why they remade God of War 2 twice.
Oh.
If you saw that one come up in your feed.
I don't think
it's a really good video, but it was about God of War 2 and then God of War Ragnarok.
Oh, okay.
And the parallels and the differences and just the story and everything. It was really cool. Like, I guess in the newer God of War games, he doesn't just murder all the gods. He's kind of grown.
He has a son now that he's trying to.
He's got to grow up a little.
He's got his he's got a dad god vibe. Let's call it that. It's the dad god.
It's the real Adonis over here.
Exactly. And so since he's grown dad god energy, that he's got to change his tactics a little bit, and that's a little bit more personal story. But Kratos gonna Kratos. It's kind of a thing that he does. I think people kind of assume when they're getting into a D&D or any other RPG that they're going to be the heroes of the story and that there's going to be a big villain that they're going to have to fight. I think that the antithesis of that kind of throws a monkey wrench is when the party actually starts doing things. Because the second they start actually doing things, it's going to become this cognitive dissonance of sorts of trying to figure out how I justify doing all of the terrible, terrible things that you actually ended up doing.
Yeah.
While saying that you're the good guys. I mean,
good guys, didn't you just burn down an orphanage?
Literally, in my campaign where I was Rembrandt, we're the folks that are trying to stop an orc invasion, from taking over a town. In the process, though, in order to escape a town one time, we basically left the entire town on fire. I don't really know if we can consider ourselves really the good folks after all of that,
Morally ambiguous.
Morally ambiguous, exactly. But hey, we did escape the really creepy kids that were probably monsters that wanted to eat us. I got rid of them, but in order to actually defeat them, I did have to send a bunch of town guards in without telling them what was actually happening.
Yeah.
And most of them died. I'm not proud of what I did.
Are you not? I think it worked.
It did work.
As a gamer, are you proud? Or as a character, are you proud?
My character probably shouldn't be proud, but as a gamer, I thought that was a very creative way to solve that problem. I've left many a game world completely screwed through the actions of my character, and I don't necessarily think that I constituted being the bad guy, but I did kind of like the idea of starting your campaign, setting it up that your characters indeed did do the bad thing. Like, this one simple job, right? One simple job, and then we're done. It's just, we're stealing this thing, and we're done.
In and out, 10 minutes.
In and out, 10 minutes, easy money.
Maybe what you can do is set it up as they start by doing the bad thing, and then the entire campaign is set up where they have to kind of retroactively make the world a better place.
Yeah, they have to undo what they have
atone.
Done. They have to atone, yeah. You set it up as your characters have already done the bad thing, and this is the world that they've created, and now you have to figure out a way to actually solve the problem.
Set it up cyberpunk style, where you start off doing the heist, and it goes down terribly.
Yep.
And then you have to figure out through it afterwards. So you start out with something that you tank, and it's causing this terrible end of world scenario type thing, and you have to figure out, you have to have buy-in for that. You'd have to have the players who want to actually, instead of being like, well, fuck it, you have to have players who want to go, and characters who want to go, yeah, we should fix this.
Right. They would have to be, not evil characters, as a general rule. Although it would be kind of funny if you actually had, literally a team of bad people that ended up doing a good thing, and they're known as the good guys now. And they have to figure out how to not get their reputation.
Touch me. No, you can't have my autograph. What is this, a hug?
Yeah, I don't want to be this. There's too... I didn't want goodwill. I like the concept of doing something like the cyberpunk, where something goes down horribly, although I would hope that it would end up better for the party than it did for V.
Yeah.
Stealing the orb, stealing the artifact, bringing your child to town or whatever, and causing tons of people to die, and the buildings to collapse, and the end of civilization as it stands. Not a great thing, but definitely an interesting story beat that's worth entertaining. Yeah. I guess the question that I would pass on to people at that moment, though, is, do you have a story about playing in a game where your party actually did do that? Or have you played a video game, perhaps, where you you started the apocalypse? Either at the beginning of the game or at the end of the game, because I've seen some of those too. We have a mechanically speaking. We must talk about mechanics for a moment. Our brand director had shared with us a little conversation that's been ongoing, and it's a tricky topic to discuss, I'd say, but we wanted to look at it from a mechanical standpoint. Anyone else feel Charm, Person, and Command are a little ick as spells? Hashtag D&D5e, hashtag D&D. I think the reason why is because you're essentially commanding somebody and kind of taking over their will.
Yeah.
As a mechanic.
Well, I think the issue that people have with it isn't so the mechanics, it's the idea of making something do something kind of against their will. The whole matter of consent being an important thing in life, and taking away someone's ability to consent to something is not typically good.
And it's
let's say not typically good.
And it's not good in terms of role-playing where people have essentially free will to use their characters. So if you're presenting a monster that can do that and take away agency from the people who are controlling their characters, or if you have players that can do that with monsters, it becomes a problem, to say the least.
I think the issue is generally the concept of these spells, like the descriptor of the spells, not given the mechanics of the spells.
Sure.
So if you have both of those parts, then we can go over that.
Certainly. Let's start with Charm Person. Start with Charm Person. So it's a first level spell for anyone who doesn't know, and it's done by a whole bunch of classes. Don't worry about that. You attempt to charm a humanoid you can see within range. It must make a wisdom saving throw and does so with advantage if you or your companions are fighting it. If it fails the saving throw, it is charmed by you until the spell ends or until you or your companions do anything harmful to it. The charmed creature regards you as a friendly acquaintance. When the spell ends, the creature knows it was charmed by you. And then, of course, at higher levels, you can target additional creatures for that. That's not particularly as egregious as the other one that we're going to be talking about.
Right.
It mostly just says that, it's not going to attack you.
It just generally will be more, predisposed to be good to you. Like, hey, what's up, buddy?
Right. There's nothing in the language that specifically states that you can then make the person do anything, except that it does know that it was indeed charmed by you. It does make me think a little bit about the idea, you didn't play Psychonauts 2. I don't think. Okay. So in Psychonauts 2, this topic actually gets addressed after one of the first levels. Because in that game, Raz, and Psychonauts as a general rule, have to go into people's heads to try and figure out what their problems are, and try to solve their problems in their psyches themselves. One of the first people that Raz does this with, he does so without them really telling him to do that, and he tries to cheese this so that he can try and get them to think something that they didn't think before, for fairly selfish reasons. And then, in the second version of the psyche, realizes he's made a mess of things and has to kind of rectify it, and the conversation that he has with that professor afterward is about the idea that you can't just go around messing in people's heads without them knowing or consenting to it. They have to be willing to do that. We have a responsibility as Psychonauts to do that. And that's a teaching lesson. And every one of those interactions after that is where Raz is kind of like going, hey, could I just peek around in there for a little bit? I might be able to figure out what your problem is. And then them actually signing off and saying, oh yeah, that would be great. and going from there. It would be how you decide to utilize it.
Sure, I could see like someone playing one of the stereotypical seducer bards, using charm person and then trying to, go further than that. But
Yeah.
that creates a role play opportunity. Just because they're predisposed to be friendlier to you does not mean that it's an instant like get in pants free card, as it were.
Right. They're more amicable towards you, and I swear that most of the people that are asking about this have probably encountered a bard specifically. That was the stereotypical Lothario bard that wanted to use this.
I can safely say I've not encountered a bard of this type in any game I've played or been in.
And I did not play a bard that was like that.
Thank you.
Well, and the thing about it is that bards are so interesting as a class, and they don't have to be that way, and probably shouldn't all the time.
It's very, very, I feel like it's very shallow role-playing anyways.
It's very shallow role-playing, and it wouldn't be something that Max wanted to do anyway, because he's a rock star. He just wants to, like, make music and be famous and stuff. He doesn't really have very much interest in, seducing the barmaid or whatever. It doesn't matter to him. So that kind of brings us on to Command. And Command is a little bit, from a technical standpoint, I think it's going to be a little bit more iffy. But let's just read through it. I'll tell you what's going on here. It's a first level spell. This one only has a duration of a round. Charm Person is an hour. So this is a much more limited amount of time. But according to this, it's you speak a one-word command to a creature you can see within range. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or follow the command on its next turn. The spell has no effect if the target is undead, if it doesn't understand your language, or if your command is directly harmful to it. Some typical commands and their effects follow. You might issue a command other than one described here. If you do so, the DM determines how the target behaves. If the target can't follow your command, the spell ends. And there's a list, and I'm just going to tell you what those are, which is just approach, drop, flee, grovel, or halt. And then at second level, you can affect additional creatures with it. And these are fairly basic things to make the creature either drop what they're holding, or move away as fast as they possibly can, or fall prone to the ground, stuff like that. It has to be a one-word command, so you can't get real creative.
You can still get pretty creative with one-word commands.
Disco.
Disco, yeah. Just stops, drops, and...
Yeah, just boogie, oogie, oogie, so you just can't boogie no more. I guess it's good that they at least put that in, because at least it makes it a little bit more difficult to try and figure out how to abuse that system.
I think the issue there is where you get players who want to just sit down and go, all right, what word do I want to use? Kind of like the players who are going to sit there and, contractually write out a wish spell.
Write out a wish spell, yeah.
You get a lawyer to go over it first to make sure it's legally binding and they can't fuck it up.
Or try to figure out the 25 words they can use for a sending spell, because they only have a limited number. Yeah. That's always fun. That doesn't slow down anything. Technically, you could command a creature to do something against their will that, I guess, was probably not very good. It does specifically state in here, if your command is directly harmful to it. It has no effect.
Part of the issue with command is that you're making a creature typically do something against its own will.
Right. In the same way that, Charm Person has that problem.
Charm Person, at least, you're not making someone do something against their will. They're just kind of more amicable to you, as we kind of went over.
Right.
Get in the comments if you want to fight about it. It's fine.
Sure, yeah.
Just kind of being friendly towards someone is not quite the same as forcing someone to do a thing. It's very different to say, oh, yeah, I work in retail, so I'm going to be predisposed to, if someone's trying to be charming, I'm going to be like, hey, you're doing great, thanks. I'm going to be friendly to them, just because it's easier to deal with in a lot of cases, so,
Right, yeah, that's more of a charisma kind of thing. But they made it into a spell, and I think that's where the problem comes.
And the difference there is, being just kind of charmed is fine. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm just kind of... Hey, nice to see you. Yeah, you're doing great. Hey, you're whatever. Just being friendly, amicable, being generally better vibes than you were.
Sure. Yeah.
But making someone do something against their will is definitely where I think a lot of people draw the line, because the whole consent thing.
Oh, sure.
Where you could just use a skill check and try to persuade someone to do something.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's so many things you can do from a charisma standpoint, from an actual...
Or an intimidation standpoint.
Yes, you can have intimidation, you can have deception, but there's a lot of ways that you can actually charm people by actually using your skills, not spells.
I would say if you wanted to use command and tweak it as a GM, you could make it tied to a social interaction skill. Maybe you want to intimidate someone, or maybe you want to charm them a bit more. Like, if you want them to do something nice for you, or if you want them to like flee, you can intimidate them and just make it more effective. Like, sure, we'll intimidate with advantage, for instance, or pair it with that to see how successful it is.
Okay, I have a thought. I have a thought that would actually fix this. We can get rid of these two spells. We can just put this one in. Is a spell almost like an aura or a buff for your character to make them more to make it easier for them to influence people. Like, you get advantage on these checks or something like that, because then you're not directly influencing somebody else's head. You're not taking that person's head over, essentially. You're enhancing your own ability to influence them.
Yeah, and it's still not the greatest, I think, because exerting control over another living creature, or another human, or another humanoid, for instance, is still kind of a contentious point, and I get it. It's not a magical compulsion.
What is the one that, there's another one that I want to...
Suggestion?
No. The more egregious one, which would be... Yes! Dominate person.
Oh, yeah.
That one...
Let's go into that one really quick.
Yeah, let's go into that one real quick. You attempt to beguile a humanoid that you can see within range. It must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be charmed by you for the duration. If you or creatures that are friendly to you are fighting it, it has advantage on the saving throw. While the target is charmed, you have a telepathic link with it as long as the two of you are on the same plane of existence. You can use this telepathic link to issue commands to the creature while you are conscious, which it does its best to obey. You can specify a simple or general course of action, such as attack that creature, run over there, or fetch that object. If the creature completes the order and doesn't receive further direction from you, it defends and preserves itself to the best of its ability. You can use your action to take total and precise control of the target. Until the end of your turn, the creature takes only the actions you choose and does not do anything that you don't allow it to do. During this time, you can also cause the creature to use a reaction, but this requires you to use your own reaction as well. Each time the target takes damage, it makes a new wisdom saving throw against the spell. If the saving throw succeeds, the spell ends. Okay. So, you now...
That one's far more egregious, yes.
That's a problem, because now we're actually issuing commands that they have to obey.
Yes, or taking control of them completely.
Yes. And in some of these cases, even though we may not think of it as, directly harmful, if you're telling it to go attack that creature, and it's a giant, we're probably doing some serious harm for that creature.
You know how I would fix this spell?
How?
Just blacklist it.
Yeah, just say no. You can't have this one. And the interesting thing here, too, is that this is technically a charmed command. Like, they use the same wording for it of the target is charmed, as they do
did notice that, yes.
in Charmed Person. But the effect is significantly different.
Yeah.
It's significantly different than that one. So
yeah. So for me, I would say if I had a player who was like, "Oh, I'm taking Dominate Person," I'd be like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
We're gonna sit down and talk about how this spell. Or I just at the beginning of the game be like, "This is a spell that's not in the game because it's just not okay on a lot of levels."
Yeah.
Like if you want to play in a game where you use it, that's up to you. But like personally, I prefer to have players who I know aren't gonna try to take the spell and do shady things, like not like shady, let's go rob a bank type things, such as like shady, morally ethical things.
Mm-hmm.
With it, yeah, I would just blacklist it. I'd say, yeah, this is not a spell. Like, if you can blacklist Magic the Gathering cards from not being able to be played, I can blacklist spells that I don't want appearing in my game.
Sure, yeah. The other thing that I noticed some of the comments down below, so I had to reread this, is that it apparently does not, even though like pre-4th apparently it had a specific thing about not being able to issue a specifically self-destructive order, and I noticed that they are right.
Oh,
this doesn't seem to
harmful.
have that. Yeah. Okay.
Anything self-destructive would become harmful to itself.
Right. What I'm saying is I don't think there's anything in the description that says that you can't issue a command to them that would be harmful.
Oh, in Dominate Person?
In Dominate Person, yeah. There does not indeed seem to be a requirement that it can't hurt itself.
I think the big thing to remember with any of those spells is that a creature, generally speaking, is going to act on self-preservation. In most things where you see anything like that, even there might have been a Doctor Who episode. If you remember that, they had all the people in the town like get up on the roofs and they're like, we're going to tell them to jump. And it's like, yeah, you can't make people do something that'll actually like hurt themselves. Like they can get up there and stand on the roof, but you can't get them to jump off it.
It's interesting though that there doesn't seem to be anything specific in the wording of it, since we're doing the mechanical part, that specifically says that they can't. And considering that actions such as attack that creature or run over there are some of the ones that they give, run over there off that cliff, or just stand here where the boulder's gonna hit. Just stand here. It's fine.
I mean, if they don't know it's gonna be harmful, is it really self-preservation?
Exactly. Then we get into the whole conversation about like, hey, if we know it's gonna be harmful to them, but they don't know it's gonna be harmful to them.
Yeah, I mean, stand here on this X isn't necessarily harmful, but if you release a boulder, or if they know that there's a boulder above it that's gonna fall on them, I think they would, be able to be like, Anyways, I don't like Dominate Person. I don't think I like that spell at all, really, honestly.
No, it's not good. I don't want this one. I think that it's bad, and people shouldn't do that one.
I think Command is a bit iffy, but not really, comparatively speaking. Command is fine.
Yeah, and compared to Command, Charm Person seems fairly innocuous, although if we wanted to really read into it, we could probably say that social encounters, as a general rule of thumb, where we're trying to influence people and make them like us, is a little bit of manipulation. I mean, it's definitely a manipulation of some sort. I don't know if it's necessarily as egregious as if we stab them, as rogues would usually want to do.
Sure. I mean, any type of manipulation, or social engineering, any type of social engineering is kind of just manipulation in a way, so...
That's right. We have the new term. I remember this from my training when I worked in retail. It's social engineers, guys. It's not grifters anymore.
Yeah. We also call them influencers.
Oh, social influencers. Yeah, that's got to be a subclass for one of the things in the future.
It should be.
That'd be great.
Just a rogue celebrity that's a social engineer, part-time murderer.
Yeah. They have their own version of Instagram, but it's just them like putting posts up on the post boards in the different towns.
There you go.
Anyway, hey, that's a form of influencing, so that's something. Maybe we could get that rolling. I think that one of the ways, though, like I mentioned before, that we might be able to do this is to work more on relating these to either feats or abilities or something that makes your character more influential or able to talk to people through these things, to make allies, make friends, that kind of thing, instead of utilizing the spells. Because I think that's really where the heart of this problem is that it's the spell itself, that we're utilizing a spell.
It's the compulsion effect, not being able to resist it, rather than, say, if we're just having a conversation, I can just influence you myself, as we were just saying. Where when it becomes magical, then it's like, hey, you either have no choice or you have to make a saving throw, which in either case you still have to make a saving throw, but it's not magical. It's like, do they think that you're being genuine?
Right.
Or do they agree with you? Or, how are you dealing with them? Like, you're being very persuasive. You know, there's
Right.
a difference between that and just going
Right.
fingers in the air, waving, and suddenly they're your brain slave.
Yeah, I think that the problem becomes when you start to take a character beyond what their normal social interactions would be, like their range of social interactions, and you create a spell that will drag them past that.
Yeah.
So in that way, even like a charmed person is like, if you have a person who doesn't like people as a general rule, they might not naturally be amicable or friendly toward anyone.
Sure. And people like that, I might give advantage on the saving throws.
Sure. But I think that it's just that idea that we're going to take it past what those characters would normally do, and we're going to influence them in a way that they don't have a choice to act outside of the range of what they would normally do.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't like it if it was my character that was getting charmed. I certainly wouldn't like it. And I don't think it's good for the monsters to do it, and I don't think it's particularly great for the characters to do it, even if it's to monsters, because it does add a level of control over what is supposed to be a very open-ended sort of experience with role-playing games, where your characters have free will. You kind of go in with the idea that everybody has free will, and that takes it away.
A little bit.
In some of these cases, a lot.
A lot of it.
Dominate person, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Full minute duration, by the way. Concentration spell. Yeah. So, Alex, with all of that being said, I guess we have charmed our way into the hearts of people all over the internet.
Everybody disliked that.
Sure did. Sure did. If you want to find out more stuff that you can dislike, we probably have a place you could go on the internet, Alex.
You can head over to TotalPebbleKnockdown.com, where you're free to dislike and just generally browse our webpage. Now, you can't unsubscribe to a webpage.
Oh, that's right. You can't. You
browser.
You can't. But anyway, if you're over there, you can check out our Patreon. We have some early releases of the full video versions of these podcasts, and you can also find some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that we put out. So that's always good. It's the crap that didn't make it into the episode, basically. And while you are over there, please check out some of the other projects that we have, and you can also feel free to find us on every podcast app known to mankind, and you can even find us on social media. I am at Citanium.
I'm at EXP Limited. Our show is over at Pebble Knockdown, and I think YouTube now is coming out with a podcast-specific thing. We're not sure. It showed up. I think it's for music, which is the premium feature. See if we can figure that out if they give us any information about it, because we're already on YouTube and the show is already on YouTube, but if we can have these full-length podcasts on YouTube as well as a podcast thing, I think analytically that'll be a juggernaut.
That will probably be good, because we do, for people who are, listening to this end piece, we do the actual individual segments as videos on YouTube. So it would be interesting to actually see it done as a full video piece, or however they're gonna do it.
No idea.
We'll find out and report back at a later date. In the meantime, though, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now.
That's what I said that already. Okay.
We'll see you in the next one.
TPK out.
Seacrest out.